Vishnupada Paramahamsakacharya Ashtottara Shata Srimad Abhaycharana Ravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki, ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki, Prem se kaho Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhaktarund ki, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, all glory to the assembled devotees, all glory to the assembled devotees, all glory to the assembled devotees, all glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga, all glory to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. So, welcome to the morning Bhagavatam class. So, today we are reciting the verse from Canto 3, Chapter 26, Fundamental Principles of Material Nature, and the verse number 8. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Text 8. Karya Karana Kartrutve Karanam Prakritim Vidu Bhoktrutve Sukha Dukkhanam Purusham Prakrute Param. Karya Karana Kartrutve Karanam Prakritim Vidu Bhoktrutve Sukha Dukkhanam Purusham Prakrute Param. Karya Karana Kartrutve Karanam Prakritim Vidu Bhoktrutve Sukha Dukkhanam Purusham Prakrute Param. Karya Karana Kartrutve Karanam Prakritim Vidu Bhoktrutve Sukha Dukkhanam Purusham Prakrute Param. So, word to word meaning. Karya, the body. Karana, the senses. Kartrutve, regarding the demigods. Karanam, the cause. Prakritim, material nature. Vidu, the learned, understand. Bhoktrutve, regarding the perception. Sukha, of happiness. Dukkham, dukkhanam, and distress, and of distress. Purusham, the spirit soul. Prakrute, to material nature. Param, transcendental. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. Please repeat with me. The cause of the conditioned souls, material body and senses, and the senses presiding deities, the demigods, is the material nature. This is understood by learned men. The feelings of happiness and distress of the soul, who is transcendentally by nature, are caused by the spirit soul himself. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that when the Lord descends to this material world, he comes as a person by his own energy, Atma Mayaya. He is not forced by any superior energy. He comes by his own will, and this can be called his pastime or Leela. But here it is clearly stated that the conditioned soul is forced to take certain type of body and senses under the three modes of material nature. The body is not received according to his own choice. In other words, a conditioned soul has no free choice. He has to accept a certain type of body according to his karma. But when there are bodily reactions as felt in happiness and distress, it is to be understood that the cause is the spirit soul himself. If he so desires, the spirit soul can change his conditioned life of dualities by choosing to serve Krishna. The living entity is the cause of his own suffering, but he can also be the cause of his eternal happiness. When he wants to engage in Krishna consciousness, a suitable body is offered to him by internal potency, the spiritual energy of the Lord. And when he wants to satisfy his senses, a material body is offered. Thus, it is his free choice to accept a spiritual body or material body. But once the body is accepted, he has to enjoy or suffer the consequences. The Mayavadi philosopher's presentation is that the living entity enjoys his pastimes by accepting the body of a hog. The theory is not acceptable, however, because the word pastime implies voluntary acceptance for enjoyment. Therefore, this interpretation is most misleading. When there is enforced acceptance for suffering, it is not a pastime. The Lord's pastimes and conditioned living entities' acceptance of karmic reaction are not on the same level. Let's do Mangalacharan. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavamsha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakanvitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhaktarunda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Welcome once again. So we are continuing with the chapter, the fundamental principles of material nature. And from the last few verses, we have been studying how this material nature is impacting the conditioned nature of the living entity. So the Sage Kapila Muni was explaining all these things, how this material nature is covering individual knowledge and how the material modes are working. So all these discussions are happening in relation to Devahuti's question in the beginning. What was her question? She was mentioning that her senses were impacted. She was disturbed by the senses, material senses, and because of that she is falling into the ignorance, the deep, darkest region of ignorance, and she wanted to come out of this disturbance caused by these senses. That was the question. In relation to that, the sage Kapila Muni was started explaining all the knowledge from last 25th chapter and this verse, and in the further next subsequent chapters also he will be giving the knowledge. But if this knowledge is mainly to address the question, the disturbance raised by the Devahuti. So this is the conversation between Devahuti and Kapila Muni. And in Bhagavatam we see everything is a conversation between the elevated soul or the incarnation of Supreme Lord and a submissive devotee. Same way we can see this here as well. Not only that, see the question raised by Devahuti, right? It is the disturbance caused by the material senses. In fact, Devahuti is very elevated soul. Her father is a Swayambhuva Manu, one of the 12 Mahajans. And husband Kardam Muni, who got the darshan of Lord Vishnu. And her son is a Kapila Muni, who is incarnation of Godhead. All these, so she herself putting as a conditioned soul, but her position is very highly elevated. But she is she is putting herself in a lower stage. But what we can take, we are in this similar condition, right? We are also in the material condition nature, disturbed by so many material things, and which is impacting our consciousness, right? So we are in the same situation. So we can see, we can apply, we can put in ourselves in this situation, and we can understand what Kardama Muni was saying till now, and we can see how it helps us in improving our conditioned nature. Like the question was when Devahuti put forwarded this question, then sage Kapila Muni started explaining first, started with what is the conditioned nature and what is the liberated state, right? The conditioned soul is saying that if the person is under the influence of modes of material nature, if he is under the influence of material nature, he will be conditioned. So, and when if he is focusing on the devotional path, where he is focusing on Krishna consciousness, then he will be in a liberated state. So, to address the Devahuti's question, so he started explaining the difference between the conditioned nature and liberated nature. So this shows that we are all in the conditioned nature, and how Devahuti was claiming herself, we are also in the conditioned nature. And then he started explaining, conditioned nature means we are identifying ourselves in the bodily platform. The next step he started explaining, we have to come to the realized state, self-realized state. This is the self-realized state means, you are identifying, you think that now you will understand that you are not body, you are a spirit soul. This is called, like a Brahma Bhuta state. In previously also we discussed. So when we get to this self-realized state through jnana and austerity, so severe renunciation and the jnana, when we do, then we will get into this liberation state where we think that we are not the body, we are the soul. But this is not the end. This is just beginning. You are in the conditioned nature where you are thinking that you are identifying yourself as a body. But as a first step, you are realizing that you are not the body, you are the soul. That is the first stage. But in this stage, I think as we discussed in the previous chapters, the verse was mentioning Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma Nasochati Nakangshati Sama Sarva Bhuteshu Madbhakti Labhati Para. So once you reach this Brahma Bhuta realized state, the conditioned nature becomes the real self-realized state where he is thinking that he is not the body, he is the soul, and at the same time he will start looking everyone in the equal vision. That's what he thinks his soul is not body, and similarly whoever he sees, all other living entities, they also think that they are also spirit souls, not the bodies. So that is what Sama Sarva Bhuteshu. And even we saw that Vidya Vinaya Sampanna in the Bhagavad Gita, Brahmane Gavihastini Suni Chena Swapakecha Pandita Samadarshana. So that state he will be there. And Nasochati Nakangshati. He will not be having any desires. So, and a lamentation for anything. So this is the state he will be reaching from the ignorant state, conditioned state. As a first step in the process, he will be thinking that, okay, I am not the body, I am the spirit soul, and then he will be getting these qualities. Then only he will be able to start devotion. Now, this is what the Kapila Muni was explaining to Devahuti in the beginning. We can also, since we are also in the same condition, we can also take, that's the first step is self-realization. Then the devotion, he's saying that we have to, from there only, we will be starting the devotion. So then here, we will be having the questions. we can ask, so devotion means devotion to whom we have to do. And the first that thing, and how we have to do the devotion. These are the two questions in the conditioned nature we may ask. So whom we need to perform the devotion? Like in the conditioned nature, some people say, I will worship Durga, I will worship Lord Shiva, I will worship other demigods, right? But whom we need to worship? That is where Kapila Muni is saying here clearly, we have to worship Supreme Personality of Godhead and who is absolute truth. And the next question is how to perform the devotion. The how to perform the devotion is, that is where we need to know how to perform the devotion. Then to address that question, Kapila Muni was saying, we need to associate with the sadhu. So sadhu is, then how we can identify the sadhu? The sadhu, they have the qualities, like he is a merciful, he is tolerant, and he is friendly to all living entities. He will not have any enemies, and he will be continuously engaged in devotion and renouncing everything. For the sake of devotion, he will renounce everything, and he will do the constantly chanting. Right? So these are the qualities the sadhu, the Kapila Muni was explaining, and when we associate to this sadhu, then we will get to know how to perform devotion. Then we will be able to progress in the devotion. So these are all things Kapila Muni was explaining. These are all preliminary details of the devotion. He is imparting to Mother Devahuti. Now, the question is, we have to perform the devotion, and devotion to His Supreme Personality of Godhead. He mentioned in the 25th chapter, it was absolute truth. Now, in the 3rd chapter, 25th verse, Mother Devahuti was, in the 30th verse, Mother Devahuti was asking, I am not very intelligent. Please explain me about the absolute truth, who is the personality of Godhead. So we also studied in previously many times that the absolute truth can be realized in 3 levels: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. These are the 3 levels. And the Brahman state we can realize using the Jnana Yoga, knowledge. That is what we discussed, the self-realized state where we understand we are not the body, we are, and the Paramatma we do go through Ashtanga Yoga. And the Bhagavan feature, this is the topmost, when we do devotion, we will be knowing the Bhagavan. Now, and in the Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter, 55th verse also, Bhaktya Mam Abhijanati, right? So, only through devotion only, people can get to know. So, now the Kapila Muni mentioned devotion to absolute truth. So, devotion to absolute truth. So, as per 2 different references. One, it is like Bhagavan feature is realized through bhakti, and the Bhagavad Gita also saying that Bhaktyama Abhinati. What Kapila Muni is referring? The Kapila Muni is referring to Bhagavan, the personal form of Krishna. We have to do the devotion, not to the impersonal Brahmajyoti or Paramatma. Whatever the devotion he is suggesting to do, that devotion is personal form of Krishna. So that is the conclusion we can derive. Now, in order to understand Krishna, because Mother Devahuti was asking that I am not intelligent to understand the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Can you explain me? Now, even we know that Vedesha Sarvam Aham Eva Vedyo, right? That is Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita. What does it mean? So, purpose of all Vedas is to know Krishna. But how Krishna is unlimited. In the spiritual world, Ananta Shesha, with 1,000 hood, he is glorifying the Krishna, and he is still singing the glories. It's unlimited. Then how to understand, how to know the absolute truth, how to know the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is where in the 26th chapter, 1st verse in the purport, Prabhupada was explaining clearly. So when we have to understand Krishna means Krishna's personal form, Krishna's internal energy, Krishna's external energy, Krishna's expansions, Krishna's incarnations. So, when we study the scripture, when we try to understand Krishna on all these dimensions, personal form, his energy is both internal and external, his expansions, and when we understand all this, this is where we try to understand, that is what we mean understanding the Krishna, understanding the absolute truth. Same thing it's mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. Janma karma chame divyam yayom yo vyeti taktvata chaktva deham punarjanma naitimam etiso Arjuna, right? When if you understand my janma and my activities, You will never take birth in this material world, and you will be coming back to my abode, right? So that's what same thing. Janma, personal form, is external, is expansions, incarnations. These are related to Janma. And activities. He does activities through his internal energy, spiritual energy, and his external energy, the material energy, right? He does all these activities. Same thing Kapila Muni was saying, right? When we understand Krishna through these dimensions, the form, incarnation, and the energies, then we will be progressing in the birth, and we will not take birth in this material world. Same thing Kapila Muni was explaining. In this same way, this is what he was explaining to Kardamuni. These are all preliminary things, part of devotion. He was giving this knowledge to Devahuti. Same thing we can understand, the steps which he explained, we can apply in our life also to progress in our devotion, because we are also in the conditioned state, like how Devahuti was claiming herself. Now, after that, he started explaining the Sankhya philosophy. So, through Sankhya philosophy, he started explaining this material energy. Material energy is nothing but it is the external energy of Krishna. So, as mentioned in the first chapter, first verse, so when we are studying material energy means we are understanding absolute truth in the dimension which is related to the external energy. That is how we are understanding. So, he is explaining, the Kapila Muni, how this material energy is impacting the conditioned soul, how it is impacting his consciousness, how he is behaving under the modes of material nature. This is a material energy, this is the external energy which belongs to Krishna. So when we are understanding this, we are understanding all these aspects in relation to understand absolute truth. Now, when we know this material nature is like how it is impacting our condition, when we know this, when we understand this, then we identify like what is the difference between the spiritual status, liberated status, and the conditioned status. When we know how it is impacting material nature, then we will get the knowledge. When we get this knowledge, when we will be able to devotion, then you will be coming out of this material nature. So in this is what briefly we discussed so far in these previous verses. Now, in today's verse, it is mentioned, conditioned soul is to take a certain type of body and senses under the three modes of material nature. That body is not received according to his own choice. This is what mentioned in the purport, today's purport. So, the body is not received according to his own choice. In other words, a conditioned soul has no free choice. He has to accept a certain type of body and according to his karma. So this is what, and same thing on the subsequent lines, it is mentioned, Lord descends to this material world. He comes as a person by his own energy, Atma Maya. He is not forced by any superior energy. He comes by his own will, and this can be called his pastimes or Leela. So here the Prabhupada was explaining in the purport the difference between the taking birth as a human being in this material nature and Krishna's incarnations. What is the difference? Like when we take birth, it is not our free choice, free will. It is our karma. It is our past thing. Karma will give our body. Whatever you do, activities in this life, you will be getting the body according to activities you performed in the next life. That we all understand from Bhagavad Gita. So, but whereas Krishna, when he is incarnating, we are descending, it's his free will. So that is whatever activities he performs, it is Leela. Now, we need to understand how we can understand this. Okay, we don't have any free choice to when we are taking the birth in this material world. We don't have any choice. Like we get birth according to our karma. This is where I wanted to touch upon the Cantos 2, chapter 5, this cause of all causes. It was clearly explained how this material universe is created. Right? So it's many places it was explained, but this second chapter, which was very in detail, it was explained how this material universe is created. So when we understand this, then we understand that how, okay, we don't have any freedom, how the process works. That through that process we can understand we don't have any freedom, we don't have any free will taken. So we know that Krishna is a Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is living in Goloka, and the cosmic manifestation is such that 3/4 of the cosmic manifestation is spiritual world, and 1/4 is allocated for this material world. And Krishna's bodily effulgence is Brahma Jyoti, which is spreading all over the cosmic manifestation. Now, the only 1/4 of the material creation is 1/4 of this cosmic manifestation is allocated for this material creation. Now, what will happen when the Mahavishnu is lying on the casual ocean? When he glances over this, the area which is allocated for material creation, that is called, initial state it is called Pradhan, later it will become Mahatattva. So that Mahatattva, he glances over that Mahatattva. What will happen? When he glances over that Mahatattva, he impregnates all the living entities. Those living entities who are in the dormant state within Mahavishnu, they will be putting into the Mahatattva. Then it's not only those living entities are coming into the Mahatattva. Along with living entities, his karma. Like we all know, whenever we leave body, one from next body, though our bodies, everything is diminished, but we carry some baggage. What is that baggage? That baggage is karma. So when the living Mahavishnu glances over the material nature, all the living entities will be impregnated with this material nature. And along with this material living entities, it will also, the living entity will have his karma and his swabhava, the past impressions, whatever he is carrying through subtle nature, subtle body, all those things will be carry forwarded into the Mahatattva. And along with these two, karma, swabhava, then kala also will be induced into this material nature. So three things. So when the Mahavishnu glances the material nature, these three things will be living entity, swabhava, karma and kala. All those things will be impregnated into the material nature. Now, at this stage, the modes are inactive. This stage is called pradhana. So as the time passes, because kala is induced in this, right? As the time progresses, then the modes start getting activated. So this is the stage, the Mahatattva. It is the area in the cosmic manifestation. It's only 1/4 of the total manifestation. 3/4 is spiritual world, 1/4 is material world. This corner, Mahavishnu is impregnating, and the living entities will be transferred into that. And then all the kala is there, is the living entity with karma and swabhava there, and kala is there. In the initial stage, the modes are not active. But as the time passes, the modes will be activated. Then first it will be sattva. Mode of goodness will be predominant in the beginning stage. That is the stage it is called Mahatattva, this material nature. And then after that it will be mode of passion will be predominant. That stage is called Sutra Tattva. Mahatattva, then Sutra Tattva. And then finally when mode of ignorance will be predominant. That is where the material nature is dominated by the mode of ignorance, the tamoguna. So first started with sattva guna, then rajoguna, and then tamoguna. The material nature is dominating. Since mode started activating, the one after other mode will be impacting this material nature. No, this is not the universe. Don't misunderstand this with when the Mahavishnu exhales, all the universes filtering. This is not the thing. This is only the portion of the cosmic manifestation where these activities are happening. And now the different modes. So the first sattva guna, then rajoguna and tamoguna, one after that, the taking part in this, dominating this material nature. Then when it is in when the rajoguna is when ignorance is dominant, that state is called ahankara. This mahatattva state is called the ahankara. Then in this state, the predominant nature will be ignorance, but it will also sometimes it will combine with the mode of goodness. Then when this process happens, this interaction happens, then that will be jnana shakti will be created, which means the mind will be created, and then all the demigods for the different senses will be created. So in the material nature, interaction is happening. When the predominant mode is ignorance and it is interacted with the goodness, then the mind will be developed. And then when the predominant mode is that ahankara, ignorance, interacting with passion, then it will be kriya shakti will be created. There we'll have a prana, all senses will be, 10 senses will be created. And when the predominance is completely ignorance, then we will have all the 5 tanmatras and other elements. Earth, water, fire, ether. All those things will be created. This is happening in the Mahatattva. This is not the universe which is coming from. It's like we can analogy how we can take. So we have a kitchen is there. And the Prem Sagar Prabhu makes so many preparations. But where all the ingredients are kept, it's in the storeroom. So this Mahatattva, we can imagine it as a storeroom. And the whatever senses and whatever mind, everything is created, it's like in the subtle state. It's like a template. It's not actual physical senses. These are all in subtle state. These are all ingredients to create the living entity. So like we have the storeroom where we will keep all the ingredients. Whenever we want to prepare something, we will take boga from the room and go to kitchen and we will prepare all the rice, sabzi, everything, right? The same thing, this Mahatattva is like a storage where Mahavishnu is creating, Mahavishnu with his energies, creating all these senses, mind, prana and all the demigods, all these things will be created these are all in subtle state, not the physical gross elements. That is what we need to differentiate. Now this is the state where all the things, material things were created, ingredients were created. Next step is actual creation. Now when Mahavishnu exhales from his pores, all the universes will be coming out, right? Each universe will be then after once the universes, when he inhales, all the universes will be going and dissolved in the Mahavishnu. So when he exhales, universes are formed into each of the universe. We all know from Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, the Garbhodaka Shayi enters into this one. Initially it is empty. Half of the thing he will fill with his perspiration and then he will be lying on this water. And from there, Brahma comes. From the stem, and from the nabi it comes the lotus flower. On the top, on the lotus flower, Brahma will be there. In the stem will have all the universes, different universes, 14 planetary systems, where like the top one is heavenly planets, middle one is earth, and the lower one is hellish planet. So these are all created. Now Brahma, what Brahma is doing, he will, as per the karma, like when the living entity is impregnated into the Mahatattva, he is having the karma and swabhava, right? So using this karma, past karma and his swabhava, he will decide what kind of body he has to get and which planet he has to be there. So he will put all those things into like according to karma and swabhava, and then using that he will put all the living entities into different planets. So this is how Brahma is creating. The primary creation is done by Vishnu, and this is the secondary creation where Brahma will be putting according to, if the person is doing so much sinful activities, so he has to get into the different body, like animal body. He will, using that Mahatattva, all the senses, everything he will take and he will assemble, he will make a body of animal. And if he has to go to the different hellish planet, like he will put it in the hellish planet. If it has to go into the heavenly planet, he will go put it in. So this is how the process is working. So that's why Prabhupada was saying in the purport, Jiva doesn't have any freedom. Jiva, he will not have any independence. So as per karma, he will be taking the birth in different bodies and in different the bodies and different planets. So this is how we can understand Jiva doesn't have any independence. So this is what Prabhupada was mentioning in the purport, that we don't have any independence in everything. It's a automatic based on our karma and everything we will. But whereas when Supreme Personality of Godhead descends, it will be like he will have his own choice. So when we understand these things, like this is the knowledge, when we understand, when we know that our aim is to come out of this conditioned nature, when we know all this knowledge, then we will focus on our devotion and we'll try to come out of this conditioned nature. Now, in the Devahuti's question was, if you remember what Devahuti question, and once again, so it was we are getting disturbed by the senses, right? So how we can get we can come out of this disturbance of the senses. So if you see the purport, in the Prabhupada was mentioning, in the purport it is mentioned that the living entity is the cause of his own suffering, but he can also be the cause of his eternal happiness. When he wants to engage in Krishna consciousness, a suitable body is offered to him by the internal potency, the spiritual energy of the Lord. And when he wants to satisfy his senses, a material body is offered. Thus, it is the free choice to accept a spiritual body or a material body. But once the body is accepted, he has to enjoy suffering the consequences. So, when we try to understand how to come out of this material disturbance, what Prabhupada was mentioning, it's our choice. So, if we have the desire to perform devotional service, then we will be having the body which will help us to perform devotional service. If we have a desire to have the sense enjoyment, then we will be having the body accordingly, and we will be having the material enjoyment as well as suffering. So this is all is, it's our desire is we should have a desire. First of all, that is what we can see in the Devahuti. Devahuti also saying, she has a desire to go elevate, because by saying the Karda Muni and everyone, she also had a desire, having the desire to elevate. That's where she put forward this question to Kapila Muni, and same thing Prabhupada was explaining. We are also conditioned nature. If we wanted to come out of this conditioned nature, when we have this knowledge, that knowledge will leads to we will have it will motivate us to come out of this conditioned nature. That is the desire. When we also have the desire, we can also come out of this conditioned nature. So the key thing is, we will take the body, but it is our desire which will drive to take the body, whether it is a body which supports the spiritual activities or the body which supports material enjoyment. It's only our desire. So this also we can understand through some another example, the material example. Like suppose, a person is there, a rich person, and he's having 3 sons. Like that rich person is giving his 3 sons like 1 million, something like that. Now the first person, first son, he takes that money, he spends all things whatever is required, and he spends all the money. He will not keep any money with him. Like the next son is there, and he's very intelligent. He invests some money in some place, a bank or something. He buys properties or something. He invests something. And the third one, he use money on all intoxication, illegal activities, all the breaking the regulatory principles. He used all things. And one fine day, when he was having the fully intoxicated, he met with an accident, he died. Then his family members will cry, "Oh God, why you did like this?" But it is not the God's choice. Like the 3 sons were there. Each one is using this free will to do different activities. One person, he spent everything to buy some items. And second one, he invested money and he saved money. And third one, he spent all things for the intoxication and all other illegal activities. So it's not the God's it's not something God is doing. It is our free will. Because of that free will, we are using our free will. Same thing, Prabhupada was saying, we should have a desire to do the devotion. When we have the desire to do the devotion, we can take this bhakti path and we will be succeed. We will be coming out of this conditioned nature. So this is what I wanted to convey from this topic. So, any comments, Prabhuji?
It's really bewildering, how the spirit soul gets entangled. As we actually read in Bhagavad Gita, the soul itself cannot be cut into pieces.
Yes.
It cannot be made wet. It cannot be burned with fire.
Yes.
Even though it's such in a pure state, it's really interesting how it actually gets entangled. So my question is it more of a soul that is actually being contaminated, or is it primarily because of the mind and intelligence in the subtle body that is actually causing, not actually, can we ever point our finger at the spirit soul because it's pure?
Yes.
Right? So is it basically because of in the subtle body, it's because of the mind and intelligence, because of it, it's actually happening?
Yeah, yes, Prabhu. Actually, yes. Actually, soul is a Satchit Ananda, right? It is a eternally blissful and eternal blissful and knowledge, right? So that is the soul's nature. But it is covered when we entered into this material world. Then the Mahatattva, that is where when the modes are started activating, and under the mode, suppose all the senses are created where when the predominant mode is ignorance, right? When the predominant mode is ignorant, mind is created. With the interaction with the goodness, mind is created. When the interaction with passion, right? Predominant mode is ignorance, but interaction of ignorance and other modes, different senses, right? Created. So, like example, suppose if one sabji is very sweet, like one fruit or something, like or bitter. When you make sabji, like they take the vegetable, you take one vegetable is very bitter, and you take that vegetable, you make curry. Still you will have a taste as a bitterness, right? It will not remove full bitterness. So you may do something active, but the bitterness taste when you are eating, you will have the same. Same thing, these senses all are created in the Mahatattva when the predominant mode is ignorance, right? So obviously those senses are under the ignorance. When the Brahma is assembling everything, these senses are under ignorance, right? So when the spirit soul is covered with all these things, obviously the mind everything will be aligned in that mode only, the ignorance mode. So that is how the soul is covered by all these things. So that is the status, Prabhu. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय.